On today's episode, I'll be talking about the 2004 romantic drama, The Notebook.
If you're looking for a man with no plans or programs, and he always leaves a chance to hold hands for romance. Are you looking for the Luke with an old man, a cold hands? It's a creature of the night who heads for his spotlight. I'm here to welcome you to Brandon at Random Reviews. No method when I choose. It's Brandon at Random Reviews. Yeah.
All right, everyone, welcome to Brandon at Random Reviews, covering one unsystematically chosen topic at a time. If you like listening to a guy recap and review movies in weekly episodes, then look no further. If you want to keep up with the newest content, you can find Brandon at Random Reviews on most major video and audio platforms, as well as all popular social media sites. If you enjoy this, please like and subscribe, and maybe drop me a nice rating and review on your app of choice. It really helps me out a lot. Like I said, today's movie is The Notebook, based on the novel of the same name by Nicholas Sparks, released on June 25th, 2004, with a runtime of 123 minutes. This movie is rated PG-13 by the Motion Picture Association of America for positive depictions of rain kissing. Budget $29 million. Directed by Nick Cassavetes, who also directed 3 movies I've never seen, but 2 of which I'm actually kind of intrigued to watch. One of which is John Q with Denzel Washington. It looks like a pretty emotional thriller type movie. I don't know exactly what the premise is, but I think I have some idea. He also did Alpha Dog, and there is a guy named, I think it's Skate Carter, and I think his real name is Nathan Carter, and he does a bunch of videos about movies. What really got me hooked on him was that he was doing movies that are not as true as what they say. Like, they're supposed to be based on real life, but he explains how they're full of shit, basically. Anyway, he did an episode and he actually pointed out that Alpha Dog is incredibly realistic and almost had trouble because it was too realistic. So I really got intrigued and really want to watch it. The other one is The Other Woman, which I haven't seen. I think it's got Leslie Mann and Kate Upton. I can't remember who the third person is. Anyway, I think it's Leslie Mann. God, I can't even remember now. But anyway, it doesn't look like that appealing of a movie to me. It looks like a bit of a chick flick, but whatever. For the writers, we have Jeremy Levin and Jan Sardi, maybe Jan Sardi. It's very confusing. The only noteworthy credit between either of them was Levin had The Legend of Bagger Vance, which was a childhood favorite of mine, and honestly, it's a questionable movie. It's not that great. I think it's kind of overrated. I just was really into golf in my youth, and so I really felt like that movie resonated with me. For the composer, we have Aaron Zigman. He also did The Proposal, The Ugly Truth, and Mr. Right. Now, those first 2, they're pretty hardcore chick flicks. The Proposal is objectively better, in my opinion. I say objectively, and then I say in my opinion. Anyway, it's objectively better. I like it a lot more. It's a lot more watchable and enjoyable. I feel like The Ugly Truth is a little too over the top and stupid. And Mr. Right is a movie with, I think, Sam Rockwell and Anna Kendrick, and I remember actually liking it okay. For the cast, we have Ryan Gosling, who plays Noah Calhoun. He was in the movie Drive, which I previously covered. I love Drive. I think it's a very awesome. It's so intense. It's like I can't get enough of it while I'm watching it, and I feel so forced focused on the screen as I'm watching it, like I can't look away. And there's almost no comedy in it to break the tension like you see in a lot of movies. He was also in Blade Runner 2049, which I think I've only watched once, but I really need to go back and revisit because I don't think I gave it enough attention when I was actually watching it. It's pretty well regarded, even though it has Jared Leto in it. And he was also in Barbie, where he plays Ken. That's a Greta Gerwig movie. Honestly, a pretty solid fucking movie, but it's a bit much. It's not something I want to watch multiple times, I don't think. Then we have Rachel McAdams, who I have noted here is hot, and she plays Allison Alley Hamilton. She was in Mean Girls, I think, this same year, and Mean Girls is still an all time great comedy to me. She plays the head mean girl, Regina George, and she plays it perfectly. Like, if you saw her in this movie and then immediately saw Mean Girls or vice versa, you would be blown away by the range that she has because she plays the bad guy really well. She was in Wedding Crashers with Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson, and I watched that movie a couple years back just to like revisit it, see if it was still good. I still find it very funny. I think it's got a lot of great bits in it. It was like in the heyday of like comedy movies that were coming out that were just like fucking sensational, and I really enjoyed it. And honestly, Rachel McAdams probably for my money looks her absolute best in that movie, if you can believe it. I mean, she looks good in everything in my opinion, but she looks exceptionally good in that. And she was also in my second favorite rom-com of all time, About Time, second only of course to When Harry Met Sally, just because I absolutely fucking love that movie. James Garner plays Duke, and he was in The Great Escape, which is an all-time great film. Steve McQueen, several other noteworthy actors from the era especially, and honestly just a fucking great movie. He was in a TV show called The Rockford Files, which I've never seen an episode of, and I don't really know what its shtick is. Like, I don't know what the premise of that show is. I assume he's like a detective or something, who knows. He was also in the movie Maverick, which was based on a TV show that he was also in called Maverick, and the movie starred Mel Gibson. I really like the movie. I've never watched the show, but honestly pretty solid, probably worth me looking into at some point. Jenna Rowlands, I think that's how you pronounce her name. I had to look it up because it's spelled Gena, which screams Gina to me, but everyone pronounces it Jenna, so I'm going with that. She plays the older nursing home woman, we're going to call her for right now. I think at one point in the walkthrough, I'll just say I'm going to call her Jenna for now. She was in the movie Hope Floats with Sandra Bullock and I think Harry Connick Jr. My mom really liked that movie when I was younger, but I thought it was just kind of ridiculous. Like, I don't know, it was way too girly for me. There wasn't a lot there for me to watch as a kid, so I didn't really enjoy it that much. She was in The Mighty, which has a laundry list of great actors in it. I mean, it's got Kieran Culkin. God, what is that guy's name? He plays Foggy Nelson in the new Daredevil show. I can't remember I'm sorry. I apologize. It has Sharon Stone, James Gandolfini, Gillian Anderson, like all of these really fucking solid people. And she was also in a movie called The Skeleton Key, which I have heard of, but I actually don't know really what the premise is. I think it's like a horror or thriller type movie. Sam Shepard plays Frank Calhoun, and he was in Steel Magnolias. I covered that in an episode in tandem with Fried Green Tomatoes, and my sister was a guest on that episode. I really enjoy that movie quite a bit. Not quite as much as Fried Green Tomatoes, but whatever. He was in The Right Stuff, which is a 3.5 hour long movie that I've never actually watched, but is very well regarded. And I think it might have been like a TV movie, like a mini series that they like either converted it into a movie for a wider release or they split a movie they shot into a miniseries because it was so long. I'm not really sure which. And he was also in Black Hawk Down, which is one of the great modern war movies of all time. Like it's one of the best ones to come out in the last 30 years, I think. I mean, that and Saving Private Ryan, even though I'm just talking war movies, of course. Saving Private Ryan is not a modern war movie, just to be clear. Joan Allen plays Anne Hamilton, and she was in Room with Brie Larson, not The Room with Tommy Wiseau, which is a much more enjoyable movie to watch in my opinion, but Room is a good movie. It's very intense and serious, though. She was also in the second two Bourne movies, The Bourne Supremacy and The Bourne Ultimatum. I don't think she was in that first one, The Bourne Identity, but I honestly love all the Bourne movies. I still have to actually go back and watch Jason Bourne, and I never saw the one with Jeremy Renner because that seemed questionable to me at best. And she was in the movie Face Off with John Travolta and Nicolas Cage. And I think I've mentioned this before, but one of the most ridiculous premises of all time. And I find it even funnier that director John Woo, I've seen interviews with him where he basically refused to admit that this premise was hilariously unrealistic. They basically have their faces surgically swapped, Nicolas Cage and John Travolta's characters do. It's very watchable, don't get me wrong. It is a stupid premise, but it is an incredibly entertaining movie to watch. And then last but not least, we have James Marsden, who plays Lon Hammond Jr. He was in the first 3 X-Men movies, and honestly, he's great in those. Really love those first 3. The third one is the most questionable, like it kind of goes off the rails a little bit, but I honestly still love all 3 of those movies quite a bit. They're still good ones to go back and watch. I probably will cover X2 at some point. It'll be a while before I actually get to X3, but whatever. He was also in Superman Returns, which was something of a legacy sequel, even though it wasn't like Christopher Reeve was able to come back for it, so it's kind of a weird one. But I covered it in my first season. It's not a great movie at all, and it's overly referential to meta type things. The first 2 movies it's supposed to be a sequel that ignores the movies after the first 2 and just picks up where they left off. And I love Superman, but honestly, not great. They really dropped the ball with that one. It was just very underwhelming by the end of it. And he was also in a movie called 27 Dresses, and that one has Katherine Heigl in the lead. I've never seen it, but I'm sure it's a very chick flicky type movie as well. For casting notes, in early development stages of the movie, George Clooney was penciled in to play Noah Calhoun, and Paul Newman was planned to play Duke. After Nick Cassavetes took over directing duties, Hayden Christensen was considered for the role of Noah. Actresses who auditioned or were considered for the Rachel McAdams role included Jessica Biel, Britney Spears, Jamie King, Jane McGregor, Jennifer Lawrence, Kate Beckinsale, Kate Bosworth, Amy Adams, Mandy Moore, Claire Danes, Scarlett Johansson, Jennifer Love Hewitt, Ashley Judd, and Reese Witherspoon. For the plot synopsis, an elderly man reads to a woman with dementia the story of 2 young lovers whose romance is threatened by the differences in their respective social classes. For the tagline, behind every great love is a great story. There you have it. Alright guys, let's just dive right into the plot of this motherfucking movie. So I'm going to start off by talking about the first time I saw this movie. I was dating a girl who found out I had never seen it and insisted that we watch it together. It would have been out maybe 10 years at this time, roughly. And I know what you're thinking, Brandon, this is pretty fucking hard to believe. You dated an actual human woman? To which I say, it's harder for some people, okay? We're not all pussy magnets, all right? And I had my thoughts, but I'll share them with you throughout the course of this episode. I'm not going to just spoil everything that we talked about after we watched it, but she insisted that we watch it because she loved it so much. We get a very serene opening credit sequence with these shots of a waterway in the early morning, and the orangish red hue of the sunrise permeates the entire shot. Slow piano music plays, and there's a man rowing a boat, and it's clearly a river, and then we see a flock of birds flying, and it shows an older woman played by Jenna Rollins looking out of a window at the majesty of the morning, and I'm just going to refer to her character as Jenna for now, maybe, like I said. Some sort of caregiver at the facility where she lives comes and tells her that it's time to get her ready for something. James Garner's voice kicks in as we see him portraying Duke. He explains that he's a common man who has led a common life, and he says that although no monuments will ever be made for him, and he will soon be forgotten, his biggest point of pride is where he has succeeded in one respect more gloriously than anyone else who has ever lived, which is a bold statement, because he has loved another with all of his heart and soul, and to him that's always been enough. Duke is actually in the same facility as Jenna, it seems, and he goes to be given his daily pills after he greets several employees and residents on his way. And to be clear, it seems like Duke is in way too good of shape to actually be in a nursing home. Like most guys in his state would not voluntarily give up their freedom to be sequestered in a facility like this. He comes to Jenna's room wanting to read to her, and the caregiver explains to him that Allie is not having a good day as she has just turned down an offer to walk. Jenna seems upset, and she asks the caregiver who the strange man is, and the caregiver introduces him as Duke and explains that he wants to tell her a story. The two of them go to a second private location and sit down in what appears to be a sunroom room of some sort, and Duke explains that they last left off with their story in 1940, where a guy named Noah was hanging with his friend at a carnival. Very conveniently for us, they last left off their story at the very beginning, so we didn't really miss anything. It flashes back and shows Ryan Gosling portraying a guy named Noah Calhoun, and he's hanging out with a friend named Finn. He sees a girl on the bumper cars that he doesn't know who is with one of their female friends named Sarah, and Finn says that this girl in question is Allie Hamilton. He elaborates by saying that her father is richer than God and that her family is only visiting there for the summer. This little town that they're in is called Seabrook, and I believe it's supposed to be in South Carolina, which is the 8th state admitted to the Union, by the way. And of course, she's played by Rachel McAdams, so she's very good looking, and Noah is of course enamored with her instantly. As she's leaving the ride, Noah very boldly walks up to her while she's with these other guys and asks her if she'd like to dance with him, and she just says no. He asks her why, and she says because she doesn't want to, and one of the guys tells him that they're with her, or that that they're with her, and she eagerly accepts their invitation to go on the Ferris wheel. As Allie walks away with Sarah later on, Sarah explains to her that that was Noah Calhoun and that he works at the lumber yard with their friend Finn. And Sarah points out that she's surprised he even came over and talked to her, and she says that she thinks he must like her. Honestly, I don't know if it's just because of what era this is, but I'm always impressed by guys that are confident enough to just walk up to a woman that they don't know and ask her out of thin air. I'm also actually kind of curious how historically accurate the carnival rides are in this scene because they look very modern to me, but I also don't know that the actual carnival rides that I've always seen aren't over 80 years old, because that seems pretty on brand for carnivals to just make do with the same rides for that long. And honestly, based on Googling, nothing is particularly egregious as far as the rides not actually being realistic fundamentally for the era, but they probably had to use newer ones so that they don't look as old-fashioned, or so they don't actually look as old-fashioned as I think that they would have, but I can't be really mad about that. As Allie boards the Ferris wheel with one of the boys that she was with before, Noah runs up as it gets going and climbs into the chair she's sharing with the guy on the ride. The operator of the Ferris wheel tells him he's not supposed to do that, but he seems to know Noah apparently, so he's not that much of a dick about it and doesn't immediately stop the Ferris wheel, even though it seems like he still should. Noah introduces himself to Allie, and he tells her that he would like to take her out sometime, and both her and the other guy are perplexed by this entire experience, and they don't understand what the hell is going on. But then the operator does stop the Ferris wheel, and he yells up and tells Noah that you can't sit more than 2 people to a car, and it just seems like maybe he could have stopped it sooner, since he knew there was no room for Noah before when he saw him climb on. Then Noah climbs out of the car and starts going down the Ferris wheel itself to get down, but he stops and he starts hanging from one of the bars and faces Allie and asks her why she refuses to go out with him, but the only thing she can think of is to say because she doesn't want to. Then Noah says that she leaves him no choice, and he lets go of one of his hands, leaving himself dangling by the other, and this really freaks Allie the fuck out. And because she doesn't want to see him hurt, he basically forces her into telling him that she will go out with him so that he won't let himself fall, and he puts his other hand back up on the bar in relief. And then as she realizes that he basically just tricked her into going out with him, and he really didn't actually intend to fall to his death in that moment, she decides to trunk him as he's helplessly hanging there. And for those of you who don't know, trunking is when you randomly pull down someone's pants without warning to embarrass them. Typically this is done while deliberately leaving the underwear up and intact while covering the private areas, but this is apparently more commonly known as pantsing or dacking. There are, of course, more extreme versions of this where you actually pull their underwear down as well, but that just seems like a very bad idea to me all around. One day, a while later, Noah stops Allie while she's walking down the sidewalk and asks her if she remembers him, and she says she does, and even mentions the underwear incident to demonstrate her exceedingly great recollection of the event. He apologizes for doing what he did, but says that he was just drawn to her, and she claims that saw him with another girl recently, but he kind of ignores that comment and asks her when she'll be free to go out on their date because she agreed to do it. And she says that she must have changed her mind about that already. But did you know that even if you do something while under extreme duress, you can still be held liable for doing those things? Seems kind of fucked up, but it's true. She runs off to get in a car, and Noah asks her if he could do anything to convince her to change her mind, and she says that he'll have to just think of something himself. But eventually, one night, Finn and Noah are going to the movies and meeting Sarah there, and she surprises Noah by having Allie with her, but Allie didn't know Noah was coming either, and she's not as stoked as Noah is about the experience, at least not at first. But after some flirting during the movie, the two of them end up walking home together while Finn and Sarah ride home separately. But unfortunately, we never find out if Finn and Sarah wind up together or anything. Doesn't seem like it. Allie explains that she hasn't gone to see a movie since she was a little kid because she has such a strict and busy schedule all the time at home, so she doesn't get a lot of chances to do shit like that. She explains that she's applying to a bunch of colleges, and her parents all discuss what ones they're interested in her going to. But Noah takes this to mean that they have way too much influence in her life, which is a totally a fair assumption, although it's usually not well received to actually say it out loud to the person in question. Noah tells her that he's trying to figure out what she does for fun, and she doesn't understand what he means. The reason he asks this is because when she was explaining that she was busy, she listed a bunch of stuff that she does that is either boring or overly academic, and it didn't sound like she does a lot of things just for the heck of it that she actually wants to do. He explains to her that he thought that she was actually free, and she says that she is, but he clearly doesn't believe her based on what she has said so far. So he challenges her to lay down in the crosswalk in the middle of an intersection with him, like on the actual pavement on the street. But she doesn't initially want to for some weird reason because that sounds like an objectively great time, and he tells her that that's her problem. She doesn't do what she wants to. So she finally caves and lays down in the crosswalk with him, and the two of them watch the traffic light periodically change. She asks what happens if a car comes, and he half-jokingly says that they die. Then he just tells her to calm down and relax and be more trusting. But eventually a car does come and begins honking at them, and they rush out of the way, and she begins laughing hysterically. Then he asks her to dance, and she agrees, and he reaches out and grabs her hand, and they proceed to just slow dance in the middle of the street without any music to dance to. Noah tries to hum a song to help them dance, and Allie points out that he's a dogshit singer, but that she likes the song, and it's obviously very romantic by 1940s standards. I mean, it was either this or going down to play jacks at the soda fountain, or whatever fucking shit they did. Duke's voice comes in again as they dance, and it finally cuts back to him in the room with Jenna, and she asks if Noah and Allie fell in love, and he confirms that they did indeed fall in love. Duke continues on by explaining that they started spending all their time together, and it shows Allie jump into Noah's arms at work one day, and it just shows them doing a whole bunch of other lovey-dovey shit together. I mean, I was gonna say stuff, but I really like to dial up the swearing. One night, she shows up at what appears to be Noah's house, where he's reading a poem by Walt Whitman from a book on his porch to his father, where his father is just sitting there listening to him in the swing, or wherever the fuck he is. Noah's dad's name is Frank Calhoun, and he's played by Sam Shepard. Frank notices Allie coming up and greets her, and Noah rushes up to introduce the two of them. Frank is very personable and kind toward Allie and makes her feel welcome right away. She gives them a painting she did, as Frank is being very complimentary toward her and seemingly goes to great lengths to embarrass Noah in the process, which is true dad behavior. Like, for instance, he mentions that she's prettier than Noah made her out to be, and I'm sure Noah didn't actually make her out to be not pretty. And he also mentions that Noah used to have a stutter. He explains that he used to make Noah read poetry out loud to him, and eventually his stutter did go away, obviously, because everyone knows persistent poetry reading is how to get rid of a stutter of any kind. By the way, stuttering is a condition that happens when muscles you use for speaking twitch or move uncontrollably while you talk. This disrupts the flow of your speech and causes pauses, unintended sounds, and sticking on words. This condition usually affects children but can have impacts at any age. It's treatable and most people ultimately recover from it. It is 4 times more common in males than it is in females, affecting 1 to 2.4% of children and less than 1% of adults. Their discussion is lighthearted, as Frank is clearly giving Noah a hard time still, but Noah is really taking it in good spirit, honestly. Frank offers to make her breakfast, even though it's 10 p.m., and Duke's voiceover explains that Noah and Allie had different socioeconomic backgrounds, and Allie seemed to have the world at her fingertips. It shows them wading out into the water at the ocean, and they keep making eyes at each other, and she asks him if she could have been a bird in a different life. Then she makes him call her a bird before they kiss, and gosh, I sure hope this romance just keeps going as good as it is now and never stops or is interrupted in some horrible way. One night, I'm not sure where they're supposed to be, but it appears that they're at the Calhoun house and they're hosting a performance of what appears to be some kind of jug band, and people are dancing to the music. And then another day, the two of them are swinging from a rope into what is either a pond or a lake, and it's really just showing what a great time they're having together and the fun things that they're doing, even though they don't even play GoldenEye on N64, so how good could it actually be? Noah even shows her how to drive a car, and Duke's voiceover comes in and explains that the two of them actually fought all the time, but they were always crazy about each other and would really bounce back quickly from fights. One night, Noah drops her off, and Allie is surprised to see her dad on the porch, and she stops to talk to him, and he immediately points out that she's becoming very friendly with that boy. And she says that she is, and he says that he wants her to bring Noah to the house sometime so he can meet him, because I guess he wants to judge him more directly and openly. Then it immediately cuts to the two of them with Allie's parents and several of the parents' friends who are all filthy fucking rich and telling terrible fucking jokes. And I'm just gonna say that this is a terrible way to have your kid's significant other meet you, in my opinion. I like a more laid back setting, but this is too impersonal and feels pretty deliberate. Like, the way they did this was to make him feel bad, basically. They ask Noah what he does for a living, and he explains that he works at the lumber yard, and it's awkwardly quiet because obviously they know that means he's a little more working class if that's the case. And to that I ask, what's wrong with lumber? I own 2 lumber yards. I just don't spend much time at them because I'm not sure where they are. Sorry, that's a Caddyshack reference and it was stupid. I'm leaving it in. One of them blatantly asks him how much he makes there, which is fucking wild. I don't think this was even appropriate in the 1940s. And he says he makes 40 cents an hour, which is actually roughly $700 an hour in 2026 money. I'm just kidding, of course. It's actually only a little over $9 an hour, which is aggressively low, even though the cost of living was probably far lower, respectively. Like with inflation, if you adjusted it, things still just costed less, even adjusted for inflation, in my opinion. Or at least that's what I've always heard. Everyone is incredibly silent after this and judgy when Noah explains that he knows he only makes a little, even though he says he doesn't need that much and he saves most of his money. But Allie's parents in particular are very judgy, and her mother, Anne, is played by Joan Allen. She points out that the two of them have spent a lot of time together and that it must be getting pretty serious, and Anne goes on to say that the summer is almost over and she's curious what the two of them will do now, and Noah points out that Charleston is really only a couple of hours away, but Anne clarifies that Allie is actually going to Sarah Lawrence, which is in New York, but she also hadn't told Noah that yet, like Allie hadn't told him, and he also didn't realize that that was all the way in New York. This seems like a major judgment error by Allie, because if she had decided that she was going to this other school that's farther away, it seems like she should have told him. She had to know that this was going to come up during this meeting, potentially. Afterwards, her parents are watching the two of them playing in the water, and although her father thinks it's just summer love, the mother seems to think that it's more trouble than that. One night, Noah and Allie are kissing outside at the Calhoun house, and in order to find some privacy, he offers to take her somewhere. So he takes her out into the woods, but not in a creepy kind of way, like a romantic way. and he shows her what appears to be some sort of house, but Noah says that it's the Windsor Plantation. He claims that he intends to buy it one day and fix it up, and she casually asks him if she gets any say in this, and he seems on edge as he asks her if she wants any say in it. She describes the house that she wants, and she makes him promise that he'll eventually give it to her, even though she clearly doesn't understand that so much has changed in his mind since the conversation with her parents. She begins playing on the old piano that's in the house, and the two of them begin kissing, and she tells him to make love to her. He lays out a blanket or something on the floor, and he gets to romancing her, but she tells him as he starts that she might have to be talked through it, not because she's a virgin, but because her mind is racing and she's got a lot of things that she's thinking about. And let me tell you, there is nothing better for anyone to hear that you're in the middle of having sex with than something along the lines of, hey, I'm thinking about a lot of other things right now, and you're going to have to keep saying stuff to keep my attention. But seriously, she points out that clearly something is wrong with Noah, and she wants to know why he's being so quiet. So they stop what they're doing, and she asks him if there's really nothing wrong because he doesn't seem to have anything to say, but Jesus, should he really be saying that fucking much during this time? He tells her that he loves her, and she says she loves him too, and all of a sudden Finn just busts into the room and tells them that Allie's parents have all the police in town out looking for her. They rush back to her house, and she's very surprised at her parents for having called the police, and no one tries to take fault, but they, no one. Noah tries to take fault. I put no one for some reason. It might have auto-corrected. Noah tries to take fault for what happened, but they cut him off and say that they want to talk to their daughter for a moment, and they finally take Allie away to another room as Noah tries to explain to her father, John, that he just lost track of time, and her father tells him that he needs him to sit down while they go in the other room and talk loud enough for him to hear everything anyway. He didn't say that last part, but I did. It cuts to the parents in a room with Allie, and Anne is pointing out that Allie is staying out until all hours of the night, and it just has to stop. Like, what does she think? She's a teenager on a summer-long vacation of some sort? I mean, what the fuck? Anne explains that Noah is a nice boy, but he's complete fucking trash, and Allie gets very emotional and insists that she loves Noah, even if her entire family hates him for weird fucking reasons. She tries to convince them, but Anne tells her that she doesn't know anything about love because she's only 17, and Allie explains that her parents don't love each other like her and Noah love each other, and this is objectively true, honestly. You can tell these two people are trapped in a loveless marriage, and this confrontation is a result of their respective jealousies. As Noah sits in the other room, he can clearly hear everything that is being said, even though it's a little muffled through the closed door. And he eventually gets up and starts to walk outside, but Allie runs after him and asks him if he's really leaving, and he says that he has to go think. She asks him what he has to think about because she wants him to talk to her, and all he can say is that she's going away regardless. Like, she's going to school. It's not like it's really that crazy that they would part ways potentially. And he says he's happy for her that she's doing what she is, but he explains that she's going to have a million things going on when she goes, and she has so much ahead of her. And he just explains that it's seemingly not really in the cards for him to end up with her. And she says she doesn't have to go to school, but he insists that she should. And then she suggests that he could come with her to New York. And although he doesn't really give a solid reason why he couldn't just do that, because he really wouldn't be giving up much from his job to just find something else for work in New York. But it's pretty clear that he's realized that on top of her parents not really liking him or wanting her to be with him, it seems like he feels like he's holding her back from a better life without him in this moment. He even tries to tell her that they don't have to figure everything out tonight and they can just see how the rest of the summer goes. But she takes that to mean that he wants to break up with her, if not now, eventually, even though he says that he really didn't say that, even though she's probably right that that was what he actually meant. But she insists that they just break up now if that's really what he's going to do, but he eventually ends up taking off, and she even has second thoughts and chases after and tries to confirm that they're not really breaking up and it's just another fight, and that tomorrow it'll be like this never even happened. The next day, Allie wakes up and sees a truck being packed with her stuff, and she confronts her mother, who reveals that even though she was supposed to have another week before she left for school. She's forcing her to leave sooner, and by sooner, I mean today. And I gotta say, Joan Allen does play a remarkable cunt in this movie because I have to admit she is pretty much the primary and only true antagonist in this movie. Allie rushes to the lumberyard to see if Noah is there so she can tell him that she's being forced to leave that day. Finn tells her that Noah is not there because he's doing a delivery or something, and she tries to have Finn relay a message to Noah, and she wants him to tell Noah that she's very sorry for everything and that she loves him, but Finn says that he was up all night with Noah and he's never been so low and that she should just accept that it's over. But Jesus, if I was in Finn's shoes, I would not say this shit to her on Noah's behalf like this. And even though, even when she explains that it was just a fight that they had, Finn doubles down and says that she should just let it go. And I'm like, bro, no. Honestly, if my friend did this and I found out, I would lose my shit on them because you're taking the whole decision out of my hands based on one night. And it's like, if he was that upset about breaking up, isn't it safe to assume that maybe she's just that important to him? He explains to her that Noah understands and explains that if he really ends up wanting to talk to her, he'll write her. She leaves off by just telling him to tell Noah that she loves him anyway, and he claims that he will tell Noah that. We see her tearfully riding away to school, looking out of the window of the vehicle, and then it shows Noah coming back to the lumberyard, and it looks like Finn is telling him what happened, even though we can't hear anything. Noah rushes off to her house, but Allie is already gone and is obviously very upset, and so is Noah, of course. Duke's voiceover explains that summer love is like a shooting star, as we see footage of Noah being very sad and writing something on a pad of paper. He explains that Noah wrote one letter a day for a year after that, and it shows Anne getting the letters at the Hamilton house. In the letters, Noah explains that he is very sorry and that he never should have broken up with Allie and that he loves her. But eventually, after the year passes, he wrote her a farewell letter, assuming that she had received all of them and just never responded and had moved on, even though he had no confirmation she'd ever even seen the letters because he sent them to her parents' house with his return address on them, and both her parents hate him. After he sent the final letter, he and Finn moved to Atlanta and began working when the news broke over the radio about Pearl Harbor, presumably, and with Pearl Harbor being attacked, Noah joined the army, and honestly, it seems like for more succinct storytelling, they could have just left the whole bit about moving to Atlanta out of the story completely, given how fucking pointless that ends up being. He could have just gotten that news and joined the army from Seabrook. He and Finn were deployed with Patton's 3rd Army in Europe, and Finn ended up dying in the snow during one of the battles. Allie had reached her 3rd year in college when she volunteered as a nurse's aide and met a great deal of injured soldiers in the hospital. She ends up meeting a man who is covered in bandages named Lon Hammond Jr., who is played by James Marsden. And I take my notes using dictation on my phone, and I always manage to pick the movies with the least ideal character names. Noah is not particularly bad for it to understand, but Allie comes up as Ali, like A-L-I, or alley, like an alleyway, and Lon comes up as lawn, like L-A-W-N. But these are the sacrifices that I make for you people. I just want to make that clear. I don't want it to go unnoticed. He points out that he noticed she doesn't have a ring on, and he wants to know if he could maybe take her out sometime, even though he's clearly in no position to go gallivanting around town. But this is the effect Rachel McAdams has, so it's totally understandable. She doesn't actually accept his offer in this moment and just tells him to focus on getting better, and then they can see about a date. One day, as Allie is walking through campus with her friends, they notice a handsome man in a uniform by a car who happens to be played by James Marsden. Her and her friends all notice him and wonder why he's staring at her in particular, and he just calls out to say that he's all better to Allie. And in my shock, I realized that this is the same guy from the hospital who was covered in bandages and bruises earlier that actually already asked her out. Actually, I'm going to be honest. If I didn't already know it was James Marsden in the bandages, I might not have realized it was actually the same guy. I'm just being a prick. He asks her how about that date and explains that he's all better now as she puts together who he is, and Duke's voiceover explains that she was surprised by how fast she fell for Lon. It shows a short sequence of them going out on dates and falling in love with each other, and eventually it culminates with them talking about marriage. Lon facetiously explains to her a reason he came up with why they shouldn't get married. He less than modestly lists several of his appealing attributes and explains that he's exactly the kind of guy that her parents would want her to be with, and he finishes the thought by saying that if she actually does marry him, she will be losing a lifelong battle of her defiance of them. So, of course, this is kind of his half-assed proposal to her, but she explains to him that he has to get her parents' permission first before he can really propose, and she really thinks that he's overestimating their adoration for him. Then he reveals that he has already asked them for their permission, and they said yes, and he drops down on one knee right there, and she's just over the moon as he reveals the ring to her. She clearly accepts and kisses him, and Lon rushes up to the stage and gets behind the mic and announces that he and Allie are getting married. As he does, her parents, who I guess were dancing there the whole time, come up to her. They're right next to her and they join her in celebration. But Duke points out over voiceover that in this moment, Noah's face suddenly came to Allie's mind. It cuts to Noah just getting back from the war and greeting his father. Then after the two of them go inside, they go inside his father's house, and his father reveals that he sold the house so that Noah could buy the Windsor plantation because he knows it's his dream house. Noah tries to protest, but Frank doesn't exactly give him any other options and says that it's a done deal and the house is already sold. He says that he will live with Noah there to help him fix it up since he also doesn't have anywhere else to stay now. And as we finally see the house in the daylight, it's pretty staggering. It's very large and it's a lot more run down than I even pictured based on all of the bad things Noah said about it. He essentially explains that he would have to replace almost everything on it, and that is as true as could be from what I can see of the outside. After he decided to rebuild the entire house from the ground up, he went to Charleston to get the building plans approved, like get a permit basically. When he was on a bus there, he thought he spotted Allie out of one of the windows of the bus, and he gets off as quickly as he can. He eventually finds an establishment that Allie walked into, but when he looks inside and sees her, she almost immediately goes over and kisses her fiancé Lon. Duke explains that after seeing Allie that day, something inside Noah snapped, and he got the notion into his head that if he actually restored the old house, she might come back to him, even though that's quite a leap of logic. In real life, I guess I won't say that it's totally a leap of logic in this movie. Jenna, the woman Duke is telling the story to, asks if Allie and Noah ever saw each other again, and Duke explains that he won't reveal anything early, even though these two characters being on the cover kissing kind of spoils that whole thing, or on the poster, He explains that eventually Noah's dad, Frank, passed away, and after some time, he actually finished the house, but despite deciding he was going to sell it, every time he got an offer, he came up with some new crazy reason to not sell it, even when the offers were above asking price. Noah would pass the time by rowing his boat down the river and banging a war widow named Martha Shaw on the regular, but the two of them never seemingly had a real relationship, despite Martha clearly being interested in that to some degree. Every time she talked about making plans of any kind with Noah, he would just shoot her down and not really give much to go on. It was like he would say he couldn't, and maybe his reason was valid, but it wasn't like he was like offering up other options of things they could do. It was like you read between the lines, and it didn't seem like he was interested. But it's pretty clear that although there was nothing at all wrong with Martha, really, Noah's mind was still fixated on Allie, and he couldn't stop thinking about her all the time. Martha attempts to call him on his behavior, but he doesn't really open up and just explains that although he'd like to give Martha all the things she wants, he can't because they're all gone and broken. It cuts to Allie trying on her wedding dress, and she's very excited about it. As everyone is chirping about how excited they are for the wedding, she looks at a newspaper with her mother and sees a picture of Noah in front of his remodeled house, and Allie faints on the spot. And I swear to God, if fainting happened even half as much half as much as it does in movies and TV shows. There would be workplace trainings talking about how to avoid fainting that would be mandatorily refreshed every year for safety. One night while Allie is in the bath, she is clearly thinking about Noah, and it cuts to her going to what I guess is Lon's place of work, which kind of looks like City Hall or an office building or something. She surprises him while he's in the middle of a meeting and apologizes for not calling ahead, but he tells her that she doesn't have to do that, and he's happy to see her. Once the two of them are alone, Allie explains that she no longer paints and she used to do it all the time, and she actually loved it, but Lon says he didn't even know that about her. And he simply tells her that if she wants to paint, she should paint, and then after she says that she will, she gets up and walks away distraught, and he asks her if anything's wrong. She turns around and asks, well, not really asks, she basically tells him that she needs to get away and takes care of, like, she wants to take care of a few things, I guess. Like, she doesn't really give a lot of info. He asks her if he should be worried, and she says no, and he sarcastically says that that's reassuring. And by the way, his instincts are spot on there. And this might make me sound like an overbearing douche, but I feel like he should have at least asked more prying questions about this whole thing, but she tells him that he should take it easy and that she's just going to go to Seabrook for a few days and she will talk to him after she gets back. If you recall from very early on, Seabrook is the name of the town where Noah and Allie met, and Noah still lives in that plantation house. So she literally just shows up at Noah's newly renovated house, which would be received so much more differently if she were a man and he were a woman. Like, this would have such stalker/horror movie vibes, but I digress. Noah comes outside and she explains to him that she saw his picture in the paper with the house and she just wanted to come and see if he was okay and maybe bone a couple of times or whatever. She didn't say that last part out loud though. She claims she didn't actually need anything and she just wants to know if he's all right. But she is immediately overcome with regret and explains that she's just a stupid woman and she shouldn't have come there, and she rushes to get back in her car and drive away. But as she turns around, she runs into a wooden fence and stalls out and all of a sudden can't start her car anymore. Noah silently walks up to her after having not said anything yet, and he asks her if she'd like to come in his house. It cuts back to Duke telling the story to Jenna, and she realizes that she feels like she's heard the story before. Then one of the caregivers comes up and tells Duke the doctor needs to see him, and the woman complains that he hasn't finished his story yet. And Duke explains that he will pick up where he left off when he gets back. Oh, and I should probably mention that he's been reading the entire story to her from a notebook. Some would call it The Notebook, copyright 2004. The caregiver asks Jenna if she'd like to play the piano because she likes that, and it's revealed that she has some sort of memory issues finally, even though you were kind of picking up on that as time went on, because she doesn't realize that she could play the piano, and when she also says she doesn't know any tunes, the caregiver explains that she can actually read sheet music, and Jenna also didn't realize that. It cuts to Duke in the exam room with the doctor, and the doctor asks him a few things. He mentions that Duke has had a couple of heart attacks in the past year and a half, and they were mild. But he also mentions the fact that he reads to Miss Hamilton because, like I said, her name was never really Jenna. Duke very adamantly points out that he knows the doctor doesn't think it will help with her dementia, but he finds that she does remember sometimes when he reads the story to her. The doctor kindly reminds him that the dementia is a degenerative disorder and it will only get worse, and he doesn't want him to get his hopes up, basically. And Duke just kindly points out after the doctor says this that where science leaves off, God takes over. Duke mentions that he forgot to turn the page over for her, referring to the sheet music that Miss Hamilton is using to play by, and she starts playing anyway. The doctor points out that he must have actually remembered to turn the page after all, and Duke says, no, she's actually playing that from memory. It cuts back to inside Noah's house where Allie is telling Noah about her fiance, and it's revealed that Lon is a member of this family that owns a company called Hammond Cotton. Noah points out that her parents must love this guy, and he facetiously states that if the two of them get married, that Noah and her could totally be besties. He invites her to stay for dinner, and she accepts, and the two of them are drinking, and she points out that she gets drunk very easily, and if they're not careful, he'll have to carry her out of there. And I'll be honest with you, it's perfectly normal to feel a certain type of way about Allie's actions at this point. She went out of the way to see this old flame of hers. She elected to very deliberately not tell her trusting fiance about the nature of the trip. And she also never really backs out of the situation despite having many opportunities. But anywho, when she talks about how easily she gets drunk, he tells her to take it easy then, and he says that way he won't have to take advantage of her. And she says he wouldn't dare because she's a married woman. And he says, not yet. And she flashes her engagement ring to him, like that means she's actually married now to her, I guess. And she asks him why he's looking at her like he is, and he just says memories. But it's just like, shut the fuck up. You are at this guy's house for only one reason, and you know he knows what that reason is. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. The two of them discuss the fact that they are in the same room that they kind of sort of fucked that one night, or sort of fucked in that one night. And it gets a little awkward, and then they go outside and they sit on the porch and talk some more. He reads a poem to her from his book, and she points out that their love was real, even though they were kids, and they really did have something together. And you really can't say shit like that if you don't want to leave it open to them boning you. You know what I mean? As she goes to leave for the night and she says goodbye, he asks her if maybe she could come back to the house the next morning because there's someplace he really wants to show her. She agrees to this and gets in her car and leaves, and Duke explains that Noah knew he was in trouble because he didn't know if he could handle losing her twice. It cuts back to him with Miss Hamilton, and a caregiver interrupts them to say that Duke's kids are there, and Miss Hamilton introduces herself to them as Allie because, as a surprise to absolutely no one, she's an old version of Allie from the story that Duke is telling. But as there is a bunch of awkward silence while his entire family gathers around them while they're outside, Allie excuses herself to go take her afternoon nap. After she leaves, the family points out that Allie seems to be having a good day that day, and Duke says that she is, and he thinks that today might be a day for a miracle. The family doesn't keep up any kind of facade for very long by going along with anything Duke is saying, and they immediately begin pleading with him that their mom doesn't even recognize them anymore, and that it's crazy that he decided to go and live there in this nursing home with her. They say neither of them need to be there because they could all take shifts watching her and not really need the nursing home. So basically, the big reveal that is, I guess, supposed to be happening here is that Duke is actually Noah, and like I said, the woman is Allie, and these are both of their kids together, and she's going through all of this dementia stuff. I mean, it's not really clear what stage she's in, but she's obviously a lot farther into it than like just early warning signs. I honestly had to look it up to see if it was actually supposed to be like a huge reveal in this movie, and supposedly it was. But I'm pretty sure the first time I saw this, I figured that out almost immediately because it seemed very obvious, and it doesn't really make much sense to me that it's supposed to be like this big twist or something, because clearly, to me, from the jump, that's what's supposed to be going on. Because why the fuck would this random guy be this interested in telling this woman a story about her boning some other guy if it wasn't him? And honestly, if that wasn't supposed to be true in like that it was actually the reveal happening in this moment, I'm just fucking telling you, because I'm not going to apologize. If you couldn't put it together by now, then you clearly weren't paying enough attention. Because also, if Duke was supposed to be Lon and not Noah, what the fuck was the point of telling the story at all? It cuts to young Allie returning to her hotel room and the phone is ringing, and it's Lon, who is shocked that she's like shocked that he actually tracked her down. And he basically explains that it's the only hotel in Seabrook, and he got worried when she never called him, even though she actually said she'd talk to him after the trip. And he asks her if she's okay, and she says she is. He asks her if there's anything she wants to tell him, and she says no, very unconvincingly. But he just kind of begrudgingly accepts her answer, and she tells him that she'll call him tomorrow. And because I've really been going all out walking through this one, I will stop again for a second to point out that the rough part now that we kind of know as much as we do is that Lon is not a bad guy. And at this time, I'm not going to say whether she's right or wrong, but I'm just going to say that as I watch this, I just feel terrible for him because he clearly doesn't deserve the treatment that he's getting. It's like I guess the message is that Lon doesn't challenge her and their relationship isn't as passion filled as hers and Noah's was, but I still feel really awful for him. It just seems like she could have ended it with him once she seemingly realized he was only really her backup if going back to Noah didn't work out. Like, how could you live with yourself knowing that you just did this to Lon? You know, if you ended up back with him, how could you, like, look at yourself in the mirror knowing that that was what you did? And why does this repeatedly happen to James Marsden? Like, multiple characters. First X-Men. I mean, that was the first one where it happened, and it happened throughout those movies where he was with Jean Grey and Wolverine was like constantly trying to lure her away from him. Then Superman Returns. He's with Lois Lane. Lois Lane lets him believe that their son is his and it's actually Superman's. And obviously it's very unclear. That movie is so problematic anyway. I guess Hollywood just really wants him to get his heart ripped out and shit on for some reason. Allie returns to Noah's house the next morning and the two of them go out rowing in the boat on the river. And whether you like this movie or not, it does have a lot of beautifully shot scenes, some of the best of which are in the sequence while they're on this river. And you can see all of the ducks or geese or whatever the fuck white waterfowl they're supposed to be. Allie says that the entire sequence or experience is like a dream, and she points out that Noah is different now. And he says that she is too, but in a good way. She also says that he's kind of the same too. She points out that he really did it and that the house is beautiful, and he simply says that he promised her that he would, but she doesn't seem to know what to say to that because she probably could have denied it to herself that he did it for her if he hadn't admitted to it just now. They hear thunder and all of a sudden Noah says that they have to get going, but they row away and it begins downpouring anyway, and the two of them laugh with each other in the rain because there's nothing they can do to shield themselves from as much rain as they're getting. When they finally get back to the dock, she gets off the boat and begins walking away as he pulls the boat up on the dock, I guess to flip it over because it probably doesn't have a bilge pump. And for those of you who don't know, a bilge pump is a marine device used to pump water out of the lowest compartment of the hull of a boat, which is called the bilge. But as Noah is taking care of the boat, Allie suddenly turns around in the rain and yells out to him and asks him why he didn't ever write her. She explains that it wasn't over for her and that she waited for him for 7 years and now it's too late. But he explains to her that he wrote her 365 letters, which for those of you keeping score at home is every day for a year, and he says that it wasn't over for him either. They begin kissing and she does that undeniably attractive thing where she jumps up and wraps her legs around his midsection while she's kissing him. Then he carries her inside as they continue kissing, and it's pretty clear that although they're truly only entering his house, they're really actually going to Pound Town as they strip off each other's clothes, and he walks her upstairs as she's stripping almost everything off, and he lays her on the bed and pulls off her pantyhose, and they commence fucking very passionately. And I know what you're thinking. Can't we just skip past this part and just say that they had sexual intercourse a number of times and they high-fived each other after? But he picks her up off the bed and they continue to fuck a little bit more, and then their passionate breathing gets more labored and she clearly has something exciting happen to her. I won't get into what. Then you think maybe they finally stopped for the night, and she says that she can't believe that that's what she's been missing, and she says that they should do it again. The morning after, Allie looks at Noah for a bit and then wakes him up, and he pleads with her that he needs breakfast to regain his strength, and as he's explaining to her what he wants for breakfast, suddenly Martha Shaw, that widow he was banging, shows up with what I assume is maybe a nice casserole or something, and she knocks on his door. When Noah answers, all disheveled, he silently leans out and kisses her cheek, and she just asks him, she's the one, isn't she? She confusingly asks him if he can meet her, and even though Noah says he doesn't think that's a good idea, Allie shows up and introduces herself anyway. In what continues to be the world's most confusing interaction, Allie invites Martha in for breakfast, and Martha just accepts that it's not weird as shit. Or I should say, she accepts it like it's not weird as shit, because it is 100% weird as shit. Then after the three of them, I guess, spend the whole fucking day together, because it's nighttime now, and Noah is taking Martha to her car. Martha, for some reason, thanks Noah and says she's glad she came there because she thinks Allie is sensational, and now she feels like she has something to look forward to. And I guess we're supposed to gather that she thinks if Noah can find his person, that she can find hers and move on from her grief over her late husband. But I just don't feel like this would be the bittersweet experience that they painted up to be, because this chick should be pretty fucking pissed off, honestly. And let me just tell you, seeing this and spending the day with those two would not make you feel any better about anything, in my opinion. I get that they wanted to give some closure to Martha and her character arc, but she was only in one scene before this, I think, that I remember, and they should have either had her discover he was with another woman and like storm off, or James Garner could have just literally fucking explained that she recognized that Noah was not interested enough in her and she just moved the fuck on. But this was such a weird choice, in my opinion. The next morning, Allie wakes up to a note on the headboard that says, "You looked so peaceful I couldn't wake you. Gone to get breakfast, be back soon." Boy, that seems like a rookie mistake to not wait to go get breakfast until she's up, but okay. And at the bottom, it also says, "P.S. Follow the arrows for a surprise." Allie follows a very deliberate trail of white paper arrows on the floor that are spaced out closely enough together that even a toddler could probably find out what they lead to. But they take her to a room where an easel is set up, and so it's like Allie could paint if she wanted to, and of course, she's very touched by this gesture. And I guess Lon should have just fucking known she liked painting so much, even though she only mentioned it for the first time after they were already engaged and had been together for a long time. But as Allie is painting on the front porch, her mother shows up and tells her that her father spilled the beans about Noah to Lon, and now Lon is on the way to Seabrook. Allie very sassily says that it will be great when Lon arrives and maybe her and him and Noah can have a happy life together as a throuple. But she confronts her mother and asks her about the letters and wants to know if it's really true, and her mother immediately, without hesitation, admits that she did withhold the letters from Allie and didn't tell her at all about them. But Allie should be way more mad that Noah just kept sending fucking letters unanswered to her house with this. It's like his return address is on there when he knew she had already left for college and her mother wasn't going to forward them to her. Like, there was no way she was going to do that. Why, after even a month, didn't Noah just maybe fucking go up to New York and try to fucking find her? She stayed available, we are to assume, for like 3 years before meeting Lon, so the window was totally open after that amount of time. Allie points out that her mother watched her cry herself to sleep for months and months and never said anything, but her mother still proceeds to not really try and defend herself. But like, did her mother go with her to college and stay with her just to watch her cry in bed every night? Her mother just deflects and tells Allie that she knew what was going to happen when she decided to come to Seabrook, which Allie takes as like her mother is calling her a tramp. Her mother tells her she wants to take her on a drive, and Allie asks her why on earth she would possibly want to go anywhere with her, and her mother explains to her that she might know her better than she thinks. And she says she doesn't want her waking up one morning thinking that if she'd known everything there was to know, she might have done something different. She takes Allie to some kind of construction site, and her mother points out a man across the way. She explains that the two of them used to be madly in love as teenagers, like Allie and Noah were, but Allie's grandfather didn't approve of their relationship, and despite them trying to run away together, her dad sent the police and caught them. Okay, so before I get into trivia, I want to talk a little bit about some of the differences between the movie and the novel here. So first off is the timeline and setting. So in the novel, Noah and Allie meet in 1932 and reunite in 1946, but the movie shifts this completely to the 1940s, and that length of separation in the book, they're apart 14 years, but that separation is shortened to like 7 years in the movie. Second is the nature of their romance. So the breakup in the movie, Noah and Allie have a volatile relationship defined by constant fighting, and a dramatic breakup. But in the book, their initial romance is much more peaceful, and they're separated by Allie's family moving away, not some blowout argument. Another difference is the letters. In the film, Allie thinks Noah never wrote her because her mother, Anne, hid 365 letters. In the book, Noah actually only wrote 1 letter a month for 2 years. Number 3 is character differences. So Lon Hammond, who is Allie's fiance, the movie portrays Lon as a bit more of a stumbling block for the couple. In the book, Lon is a genuinely kind, handsome, and successful man, making Allie's decision even more difficult because there's nothing wrong with him, which I think is not really fair because I felt like the movie made him seem like there was nothing wrong with him either and that he was very handsome and charming and all that. So maybe that's kind of an off base type thing to say. Allie's mother, the movie gives Anne Hamilton a redemption arc where she reveals that she once had a lower class lover, showing Allie that she understands her struggle. This scene does not exist in the book, and Anne is much more of a straightforward and unredeemed antagonist regarding Noah's social status. To be clear, the only redemption that movie Anne has is her giving Allie the letters, and according to multiple sources, book Anne does this as well. The whole part about her saying that she also had like a lower class fling doesn't really actually redeem her in any way, in my opinion. It just makes her seem more psychotic, like I said. Number 4, plot points and drama. The famous scene where Noah and Allie argue in the rain and she asks why he didn't write is an invention of this movie created entirely for the movie itself and does not exist in the book. In the book, Allie's decision to stay with Noah happens somewhat more internally and gradually. The movie heightens the drama with the confrontation involving Lon at the hotel. The movie introduces Martha Shaw, a war widow that Noah casually sees before Allie returns. Martha does not exist in the novel, and Noah is portrayed as being entirely celibate and waiting only for Allie. And that tidbit makes way more sense to know now because Martha felt so tacked on in this movie. And the whole confusing way that they end her arc is just crazy to me. In the ending, spoiler alert, but honestly, if you made it this far, you're probably already spoiled to shit. In the movie, Noah and Allie pass away peacefully in each other's arms in the hospital bed, a happily ever after conclusion. The book ends on a more ambiguous, though miraculous note. After Allie recognizes Noah, they begin to become one, but the book concludes with the implication of a romantic encounter rather than their simultaneous deaths, which are addressed in the sequel to the book, The Wedding. And I want to say that they're implying that they boned it out, guys. That's what I'm gathering from that statement. All right, on to trivia. So Ryan Gosling prepared for his role in this movie by living in Charleston, South Carolina before filming began. For 2 months, he rode the Ashley River every morning and built furniture during the day. According to Nick Cassavetes, Ryan Gosling and Rachel McAdams did not get along at first, and Gosling tried to have McAdams replaced at one point. To improve this relationship between his lead actors, director Nick Cassavetes staged an intervention by bringing them into a room where they could air all of the grievances they had with each other and work something out. They soon patched up their differences enough to become a real-life couple for some period of time. Rachel McAdams spent time in Charleston before filming to familiarize herself with the area. She also took ballet and etiquette classes and had a dialect coach to learn the Southern drawl accent, whatever you want to say. I mean, it's not very pronounced in this movie, which is probably better because it starts to sound very foghorn leghorny. Ryan Gosling built the kitchen table featured in the movie in preparation for his role as Noah. The scene where Noah drives up and crashes into the pile of Allie's summer manor, or to the gate, of Allie's summer manor was a fluke. They ruined a perfectly good gate, but they managed to get a great shot. Rachel McAdams auditioned for the role during another movie's premiere. She was given the script just a day in advance and beat out at least 9 other actresses for the role. One of the scenes used during her audition included the one of Allie's and Noah's argument at the end after Allie and her mother return from their morning drive. The second love scene with Noah and Allie was originally longer and more explicit, and it had to be edited in order for the film to keep an MPAA PG-13 rating. I always find it fascinating when they do that because it's like, yeah, they clearly wanted to go all out, but the ratings wouldn't let them. In June of 2024, Nick Cassavetes, who directed his real-life mother Jenna Rollins here in the part of a woman with severe dementia, reported that Rollins herself now has full dementia at age 93, which is terrible, by the way. Like, my maternal grandmother had Alzheimer's and dementia, and let me just tell you, the last several years of her life were incredibly difficult. And although I don't necessarily think that this movie horribly misrepresents the disease, it's almost like it romanticizes it, or the disorder. I don't know if it's a disease, but I'm not a huge fan of how they do that. Ryan Gosling, who plays Noah, and Rachel McAdams, who plays Allie, were both born in St. Joseph's Hospital in London, Ontario, because they're a couple of Canadians, eh? In her memoir, Britney Spears revealed that she was the second choice to star as Allie. This would have been a reunion for Spears and Gosling, who were actually in the Mickey Mouse Club together. The film rights to this novel were acquired by New Line Cinema in 1996, represented by producer Mark Johnson. Jeremy Levin was hired to write the script, which caught the attention of Steven Spielberg in 1998, who wished to film it with Tom Cruise as Noah Calhoun. Spielberg's commitment to other projects led to Jim Sheridan becoming attached to direct the following year. The filming was set to start in 1999, but was pushed back over rewrites. Sheridan eventually backed out by October of 2000 to work on the film in America in 2002, and I think they even had a couple other directors that were involved in it before they got to Nick Cassavetes. All right, so IMDb nuggets, like I said, these are just ridiculous tidbits that people submit to IMDb trivia that have no business being there. At 1 hour and 3 minutes and 43 seconds in, Rachel McAdams looks right at the camera, and I literally never noticed this. I don't even know that it was actually as egregious as this would make it seem, but I mean, it's they're pointing out a fourth wall break, but I mean, it would have had to be really fucking bad for me to actually notice it. All right, on to info and ratings. Opening weekend, 13.5 million. Worldwide gross, 118.6 million. IMDb rating, 7.8. Letterboxd rating, 3.9. Rotten Tomato critic score, 54%. Rotten Tomato audience score, 85%. So big disparity there. Personal rating, 4 out of 5 stars. It's really an incredibly watchable movie. I mean, this is praise, of course. I usually announce it. Praise for this movie. It's really an incredibly watchable movie, and I do love the chemistry between Gosling and McAdams. I think that although I don't love them trying to act like it was some huge reveal, the older versions of Allie and Noah really added something special to the film. And another thing, so criticism for this movie, why the fuck couldn't Allie send a single letter to Noah so he could have had her school address and he wouldn't have to hope for the best that her mom would send his letters to New York every time he sent them, which was supposedly once a day for a year? Are you out of your mind? All right, everyone, thank you for stopping by. I do appreciate it. Have a good rest of your day. Bye now.
I'm here to welcome you.